Today, we're talking about how to price your services, specifically if you're just getting started in your business. There'll be a lot of information you can take away in this episode. And if you do want help in booking in more customers, specifically through using email, click the link down below and you can get my 6-figure email templates. These are the same templates that we use in our business every single day to book in 200, 400, 1,200 or $2,000+ jobs between our detailing services, correction and coatings, window tint, vinyl wrap. You can get access to all these by clicking the link down below. Let's go ahead and get started with this episode. So you just started your detailing business and now you're wondering, well, what prices am I supposed to set? What's competitive pricing? I don't want to price myself too high to where I don't get any customers, but I don't want to price myself too low to where now I'm just cheap and I'm not making any money. And there's a lot of ways we can go about this, right? So this is for the person that's just getting started, right? You have to understand that your prices are not set in stone, right? It's not this concrete number that you set that once it's set, you can't change it for the next 6, 12, 24, 36 months. If you set a price today, you can change it tomorrow. You can change it next week. You can change it next month. So whatever price you do set, whatever it is, don't think like, oh man, well on my website it says, $50 for a wash or whatever. And now, I can't change it because then people are going to think I'm just changing my prices every other day. I don't know. You get the point. It's not like that. So all the times that we've ever raised our prices, we don't announce it anywhere. We don't say like, hey, letting you know that, next week we'll be raising our prices by $50. We don't, because one, we always work in ranges, right? It's not like you're purchasing some protein jug from us and next month we're gonna raise it by $7 because the raw material that we purchase now is more expensive and we're gonna up our price to make sure we can still afford the higher quality material. It's not like that. We always work in ranges in terms of, hey, for a deep interior cleaning on your vehicle, it's gonna range between $220 to $265, right? So there's always, because there's so many factors into pricing, and not many actually. It's always gonna be the size, the size of the vehicle, the condition of the vehicle, and then what the customer wants to get. So your prices are not set in stone. That already should alleviate a lot of stress or anxiety because you're not stuck to anything. If right now you say, oh, I'm gonna charge $150 for that kind of detail, and you go do one detail and you're like, oh man, that was so much more work than I expected, and I only charge $150. Okay, so on the next detail that you get, charge $200. Like, it's that simple and that straightforward. So your prices are not set in stone. It's not something you can adjust your prices as you go along. And let me check that it's actually recording. I'm always scared I'm shooting a podcast and then I'm not recording on the audio behind me, but it looks as we are good. So next thing is that in order to get more accurate price, because there's no perfect pricing. There's never a time where you're going to be like, okay, we are charging the most perfect price that we could ever charge. That's never going to happen, okay? Because you can always charge a little more. You can always make a little more. You can, so there's no perfect pricing. It's just what's the most ideal pricing you can get based on where you are and what you're working on, right? So aside from that, the way you're going to price jobs comes from experience. And you can't get experience unless you book jobs. So if you want to get better at pricing, you need to book more jobs. And the only way you're going to book more jobs is by booking more jobs and not worrying about going for the perfect formula of pricing, right? And you learn the most in terms of what to price or what not to price by having those bad details, right? If you go and do a paint enhancement for $300 and it ends up taking you 11 hours to complete, you're going to be like, oh, okay. So on a mid-sized truck that has soft paint, I should charge probably $700 instead of $300 because it took me 11 hours and I thought it was going to take me like 5 hours. Being super general here, but you get the point. The bad experiences that you go through will teach you a lot more in terms of what you need to adjust, what you need to tweak in order to get to that more ideal pricing range, okay? And the only way that's going to happen is by you have to work on all types of vehicles, all sizes of vehicles, and all types of conditions in order to really get a good understanding of what that price threshold should be, depending on where you are in your business, right? So if you're just getting started, and you've only detailed 5 cars, let alone they're like some basic, like a basic car wash. Well, the first time you get someone that's saying, hey, and how much would it be to clean my engine bay? You're going to be like, oh, well, I've never done that. 40, And as you do another one and another one, and maybe by the 10th one, you're like, okay, so this is roughly taking me around 45 minutes. And, I'm doing a very detailed job. So I think I'm going to up it up to 65. So there, after the 8th, 10th, 12th engine bay detail, you're going to say, okay, I'm charging 40, but I'm going to start charging 65 now. And then on that, 10th detail, you're like, hey, it's now, it's $65 for an engine bay detail. And that's literally the same progression you're going to make for every single service. On your first, the first time anyone ever asks you for a ceramic coating, you're going to be like, oh man, well, okay, so do I have to polish the vehicle first? Okay, we'll have to polish it first. And okay, I'm going to charge $500 to polish and ceramic coat it. And you go out there and, oh, look, it took you 12 hours to complete. Oh man, that was a lot of work. Oh, you finished that all in one day. That should really be like a 2-day job because you wanted to do a lot more. And you didn't clarify some details with the customer and you kept on doing more. And okay, so now I understand. If I want to do a ceramic coating, it has to get a correction and a cut and polish to it. And I could do it in 1 day, but to really give me time and to not stress myself over the time frame, it needs to be over 2 days. Oh, okay. And instead of charging $500, I'm going to charge $900 now. That is a natural progression that you go through with your price, and really anything in life, but that's a natural progression you'll go through in your business with your pricing as you get more and more reps under your belt. You're not going to be able to understand pricing or how long a job takes you until you get more reps. And the only way you're going to get more reps is just by simply making more mistakes, right? Because you're not going to improve unless you make a mistake. And you're not going to make a mistake until you just say, yes, I'm going to book that in for $100. And from there, you're just going to see what happens, So you have to get more reps. That's the only way. You can't, well, what's my favorite quote? You can't get great into, what's the quote? You can't be great without reps. Oh, I forget what it was. I heard it a long time ago. Anyways, you can't be great without reps is basically what it comes down to. Like, before you get great, you have to be repetitive. You just have to do it over and 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 over. And then you start to improve, right? Because that's just naturally how the progression goes. So now let's talk about a very simple pricing structure, okay? We're going to keep things very simple. You're going to take how many hours you think is going to take you to complete a job, and you're going to multiply that by the amount of money you want to make per hour, and that's going to give you a general ballpark number of what to charge. Okay, so let's say you want to make $25 an hour, okay? And you get you get someone that asks you, hey, how much would it be for this kind of detail? And you're like, okay. In your head, you're like, okay, for that kind of detail, it'll probably take 5 hours. So you're going to take 25 hours because that's how much you want to make per hour. You're going to multiply it by 5 hours because that's the estimated time you think is going to take you to complete the job. You're going to multiply those, right? And you're going to get $125 as the total price. Now, again, that's just the most simplistic way to look at it. And I mean, that'll get you pretty far. The way that's going to work is, again, going back to reps, going back to not set in stone. But aside from that, that's why we always work in price ranges, okay? The only time we give a solid answer is typically on more basic services. Like, let's say an engine detail is always $80. Headlight restoration is always $120. Aside from that, it's typically price ranges. Now, on, like, let's say a wash and wax or a mini interior detail, we give a single price to those quotes, but that's very contingent on all the details that the customer gives us, right? So if someone's asking for a wash and wax, we're not going to say, oh, if they tell us it's a 2019 Tacoma, right? And they're asking for a wash and wax. We're not going to say, oh, so for a wash and wax, it's going to range between $220 to $260. The reason why we don't give ranges for those kind of services is because they're pretty clear cut. Like, even if it is very dirty, once you just pressure wash it once, you're ready to go. Now, granted, there are going to be times where, like, it's really dirty and really bad, and it does need extra attention. But for the most part, we can give a set price without even looking at the vehicle for the wash and wax and the and mini interior detail, because it's still contingent on what they're saying. But after, again, going back to the repetition, after doing it for so many times, you get a pretty good idea of like, okay, for that kind of vehicle, like, this is what we should charge. So it's still very, very contingent, and this is the important part. It's still highly contingent on the details that they give us, right? So if they say, oh man, like, it's been so dirty, I haven't washed it in 4 months, I've been road tripping all across it, naturally, we're just gonna charge higher based on on what they're telling us, right? Now, if it's not that bad, if it's not that dirty, we'll charge lower. But it's in our heads, we're still working on a range of like, okay, it's dirty, it gets driven all the time, he takes it off road. Okay, naturally, we're gonna charge higher. And if it's more average kind of driving just to work and back home, and it's like a single person that doesn't have, we're gonna charge less. But we still give one price to the customer. We don't give them a price range. Now, for something like a correction in coat, or a paint correction, or a correction in coating, or a full interior, a deep interior cleaning, on that we always work on a range because we need to see the vehicle, right? Same thing for vinyl wrapping. We give a general price point, but until we see the vehicle, or kind of get more photos and get more details of what the customer wants, we give a price range on those. For window tint, that's always a single price, but I digress. For the most part, this is pretty simple. Now, again, if you take that same formula, right, but you wanna think about it in terms of ranges. Okay, so you look at the detail and you want to make $25 an hour, and someone comes to you, say, hey, how much would it be for this kind of detail? And again, keeping things very generic. And you say, okay, I think the fastest I can get this done is in 4 hours. Right, so if you're multiplying 4 hours times $25, that's gonna be $100 for the detail, right? The fastest, shortest time you can do it is 4 hours. But you say, but if it's really bad and it's all cloth seats and there's heavy stain and pet hair, it might take me like 6 hours to complete, right? So the shortest amount of time will take you 4 hours, and that'll be $100 because you want to make $25 an hour. 25 times 4, 100. And you're saying, okay, on the high end of like, it might take me longer because it's dirty. It might take me 6 hours. So now you multiply 25 times 6, and that gets you $150. So now you can tell the customer, assuming you haven't seen the photos and seen the condition, you can give a general price point of saying, okay, for a deep interior cleaning, the price will range between $100 to $150 and will take anywhere between 4 to 6 hours to complete. Right? Again, this is an example. Don't actually use these numbers. Just trying to give you an example to help you understand what I'm talking about. And that's exactly still what we do now, right? Like on our website, we display our pricing. And again, on our website, it's always in for the most part, it's in, again, minus a headlight restoration, that's always the same price. And the engine detail, that's always the same price. But everything else we display in ranges because that gives us room to, we put our pricing on our website because we want the people to see our prices, because if they look at our website and they already say, oh, that's too expensive for me. Okay, well, we don't need them to call us and contact us because we're already out, we already price ourselves out of what they can afford. So we don't want to waste their time and our time and talking back and forth until, we say, hey, and for the detail, it'll be $400. You're going to be like, oh, whoa, that's way too expensive. Like, I thought it was going to be something, much cheaper. No, I can't go with you guys. We want to avoid that. So and we've had our prices on our website since 2014, 2015. So I encourage it because it weeds out the people that just simply can't afford your services and aren't a good fit for you. But even on our website, we talk and we display them in ranges because it's highly contingent on what the customer, what kind of, just what the vehicle is and what the customer wants. That's why I never recommend, and nor do I do myself in our business, that we have a self-scheduler. So many people want to be like, oh, well, how do I let the customer self-book, right? Like as if it's like a Booksy or a cut software for barbers where you can go in there and select your own service and select your own time slot and you just show up and the barber is there for you, right? I have not seen anyone in the service-based business do that properly, right? Even some big companies around me, like a John Moore or an Abacus, they are really big companies when it comes to HVAC, plumbing, heating, roofing, Anything home related that you need, they do it. They're a large company. They have a ton of vans, a ton of techs. I've gone through their process to see what they do and the software that they use. And even with how the enterprise level software that they have and what you're able to do to it, you still don't self-schedule. You still need to talk to someone. You still get a quote because there's so much that goes into like getting the details right that if I just allow someone to self-schedule, there's going to be such miscommunication about what they think they're getting and what we're going to deliver that it's going to end up adding more headaches at the end of the detail if we just go off of assumptions, right? Even if I painstakingly write down every single little detail that's included in that service, they're gonna misread something. They're gonna misinterpret something, and then at the end, we're just stuck going back and forth. We're like, oh no, what I meant by that is this, and oh, you wanted that with this, oh, well, you want that. It just leads to too much confusion. So that's why I don't recommend any self-scheduling software because it doesn't do the job right. That like. I need to hear all the customers' problems because like even if they select a full interior cleaning, right? Well, what if they have a lot of pet hair? What if there's vomit somewhere? What if you need to have all the details and it's not much, right? That's why like when we talk and that's how we're able to book so many customers through email because we have our template because it's really not much information that you need. But there's important information that you need in order to know to get all the details about the vehicle so that then you can give a proper price, right? Like a Toyota Camry, you can have two people with the same Toyota Camry, same year, but like if they're driven completely different and they haul in terms of like the people, the dogs, the goods, the packages inside the vehicle, those are two completely different details. So whether it's our window tint, PPF, there's no self-scheduling because like we need to understand all the details that the customer has. Right? Like we need to really understand like where they're coming from and what they want and what their expectations are and what their budget is. That way we just make sure like everything and everyone is on the same page, which is why it's important that when you're communicating with your customers, again, you are the professional, right? When you're first getting started, obviously you don't have as much experience and knowledge in terms of like communicating with customers and your services and, all this stuff. But like at this point with us, like, we know all the questions to ask. We know what we need from the customer. There's no surprise of like, oh man, I forgot to ask the customer if their seats are cloth, right? Or so, something like that. Like we are the professionals. So when we're talking to the customer, whether it's through phone, whether it's through email, it's like we know the questions to ask to get a proper diagnostics of what their vehicle is, so we can give them a proper quote. So that was a long rant. So at the end of it, don't be scared of pricing your services because again, it's not set in stone, right? You might think, well, I keep on charging X price and no one's booking. Well, is that a pricing problem or is that the kind of customers you're attracting problem, right? Because if we charge $500 for window tint, right? Ceramic all around. The next shop that charges $500 for window tint, are they going to book those customers in, right? Like there's plenty of tint shops around here that charge like $200 to do all the windows. And we charge $500 ceramic to do all the windows. Now, that next tint shop, can they just instantly raise their prices to $500 and they'll start booking them out? Probably not, right? It's not a pricing problem because our prices are at $500 for a full all around window tint and customers are booking with us, right? But if they were to charge that at their place, well, they're not attracting the kind of customer that wants to spend $500 on ceramic window tints on their vehicle. They're attracting the customer that wants to spend the cheapest money to just get shaded tint on their vehicle with no heat rejection or anything like that, right? So a lot of times it's not a pricing problem. It's the type of customers you're attracting problem, okay? Because again, if we charge $400, $800, $1,400, $2,100 for a detail here, well, there's another detailer or a window tint shop down the road somewhere that's like, oh man, well, nobody wants to pay $200 for a detail. Or like, oh man, like no one wants to purchase ceramic window tint from us. Like, oh man, why is it so hard to book in a detail for more than $300, right? We're in the same area. We offer the same services, right? It's the customers that are completely different, right? And it's the customers that dictate the kind of pricing that you can have, right? So if you don't have anyone booking with you, I mean, don't get me wrong. If you're just getting started, yeah, you want to kind of lean towards the cheaper side because you don't have the experience, you don't have the knowledge, you're just getting started, you don't have the lead flow. So things are against you in that manner, right? But as you grow and you get better and you get more customers and you get more consistent work, well, now you get to really match your pricing with the quality of work that you do because you're a bit more established. So if you're just getting started, yeah, I would say lean towards the cheaper side because again, you want the reps, you want the experience, you want to get your name out there, you want to do and actually do the work. So it makes sense to start on the cheaper side. But as you get more customers and, sooner than later, obviously, you do want to start to raise your prices. That way you're matching your quality for what you're charging. And again, like the goal isn't to always be the most expensive, right? In as much flack as I get sometimes on YouTube or on Instagram or TikTok about our prices, we're still not the most expensive shop here in Houston, right? Like if I say we charge $1,200 for a detail and people go mayhem in the comments, well, for the same detail somewhere else, they might charge $1,800, $2,100, right? There's still a big discrepancy in pricing in terms of what we charge to the bigger shops that charge even more than us. So for us, like, you don't like the goal should not be it comes back to like what you want to achieve and your goals and what you want to do and all this, but like the goal isn't like, oh, I want to be the most expensive. It's like, well why? What did that achieve? Not again, like just because someone charges more doesn't necessarily mean they're better, but like if they're a bigger business and they have more expenses and they have more employees and they have a bigger shop, well, they have to charge more naturally because they have to cover those costs, right? But again, like there's so many ways to build a business. Like you can have a big business charging just like for car washes and interior cleanings. You can have a viable business with doing higher ticket items. Like they all work if you just follow a game plan and you keep at it, right? But even with that, like whether you're charging, cheaper side services or more expensive side services, like it's all trial and error, right? Like you're gonna go through iterations of your business, of your pricing to see like what's the good price point for your style of business, right? So there's no right or wrong answer in terms of what's the perfect pricing. It just does the services and the pricing match the type of customers that you have, right? Like if your main goal is to offer correction and coatings, and you're spending most of your time doing basic washes for $30, well, there's a big disconnect between what you want to do and what your goals are versus the type of customers that you're getting and the work that you're doing and what you're charging, right? Like if you want to do correction and coatings and you're booking in correction and coatings and you're getting and you're charging the proper amount, well, job well done. But if you want to do correction and coatings and you're booking in correction and coatings, but you're doing it much cheaper because like you're saying like no customers want to pay our full price, well then again, it's not a pricing problem. It's the type of customers that you're attracting problem. But that could be a whole topic in itself. So hopefully that gave you some context of how to charge for your services. I really want to drill the point home of like, it's not set in stone. You can change your pricing. There's no one telling you like, oh, once you put $50 for that detail, like it has to stay that for the rest of time. It does not. If you want to change things from today and tomorrow, you can totally do that. After one detail, you want to start raising your prices, you can totally do that. There's no one telling you, no one putting a box around you saying that you have to charge these prices for X amount of time. If you want to change them, if you think they're too high, lower them. If you think they're too low, raise them. You are in control of that at all times. Hopefully that helped you out. If you want to check out the 6-figure email templates that I use in our business every day to book out our customers or to book customers through email, you can check that down below. I'll talk to everyone on the next one.